This is the story of an England that never was, radical, militarised and truly Protestant, and of the king who tried to take us there. His quest to change England was to tear apart his family and his country, to set brother against sister and church against people. His name was Edward, and he inherited the throne when he was only 9. For 25 years, King Henry VIII had been trying to father a male heir. Finally, after 3 wives and 2 daughters, he had succeeded. When Queen Jane Seymour gave birth to a son, the country rejoiced. On the 12th of October, 1537, Edward was born here at Hampton Court. 3 days later, the baby was christened. The galleries, chambers and halls of the palace were hung with tapestry. The baby was carried in procession through them. All the splendour and magnificence of the Tudor court was there. There were drums and trumpets, heralds and lords and ladies. Walking after the baby, sharing in the triumph, was the midwife who had delivered him and the wet nurse who was suckling him. The christening itself took place on a high platform in the centre of the chapel. The font was of silver, lined with soft linen and filled with warmed water. And there, under a canopy of cloth of gold, the baby was christened Edward, and the heralds proclaimed his titles: Duke of Cornwall, Earl of Chester, son and heir of the right high, mighty and victorious prince, King Henry VIII. But then tragedy struck. The birth had been a long and difficult one. At first, Queen Jane seemed to recover. Then she caught puerperal fever, and within a week of the christening, she was dead. It would be easy to exaggerate the emotional impact on Edward of his mother's death at such an early age. Even when their mothers were alive, royal babies, especially boys, wouldn't normally spend much time with them. Moreover, there were many substitutes on which Edward's affections could fix. Edward's infant years were spent amongst the women, like any other Tudor boy. Accounts of the time describe Edward as both merry and pretty, a promising future king, loved and spoiled by his father on his infrequent visits, but looked after by his devoted nurses. He was moved between the various royal residences, but spent much time in a house in Hertfordshire, where for a while both his half-sisters, Mary and Elizabeth, lived with him in a strange game of happy families. This picture was painted in 1544, when Edward was 6 years old. It's normally called the family of Henry VIII, but it's not about family in the modern sense, in which relationships are about love and affection. Instead, it's dynasty, in which relationships are about power. That's why, in the middle, so much bigger than everybody else, is there the king, Henry VIII. Next to him is the Queen, but it's not the actual Queen of 1544. Instead, it's Jane Seymour. She's long dead, but she's shown next to Henry because she's the mother of Edward, the heir. And he is on his father's right hand, snuggling up to him, not out of affection, but to symbolise that he's the successor. On either side are Edward's two half-sisters. Mary is the daughter of Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Elizabeth is the daughter of Henry's second wife, Anne Boleyn. Mary and Elizabeth were declared bastards when their mothers were divorced, but they appear in this picture because Henry had decided once more to include them in the succession, and to do it, moreover, by Act of Parliament. This laid down that the heir was first Edward. If he died without heirs, second Mary, and if she died without heirs, third Elizabeth. The seeds of more than a decade of trouble were sown.